what if this isn't about you? What if this is just around, this isn't the right person at the right time? And can you hold that space, and can you believe in yourself enough that someone else is going to come in?
To get to the place where you feel calm, where you feel joy, where you feel like your business is uniquely yours, it's a unique expression of your soul, you had to get into your body and you had to slow down. And as you slow down and you got aligned, things sped up because actually things move as quickly as you're aligned.
I knew that they were possible, like, in the world and in the universe. I knew that it was gonna happen, but I thought that it was gonna happen maybe, like, 10 or 15 years from now.
Welcome to It's Not What You Think, the podcast that takes you on a transformative journey to rewrite your story of greatness and reawaken your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Celine DaCosta, a subconscious mind expert, master coach, and believer in the limitless power and magic that lives within all of us. My intention in this podcast is to propel you into your next level of success so that you are free to create the life that your heart most desires. Through deep, actionable insights, personal stories, and world-class guests, I'll provide you with the tools, strategies, and resources you need to unlock the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime so that you can consciously design a reality that is beyond what you could have ever dreamed of. Join me on this journey to personal growth and evolution, and let's live our lives in accordance with our highest soul's calling. This podcast is your weekly check-in to help this path become more simple, obtainable, and fun. Thank you for tuning in today, and now let's dive in.
Hello, family, and welcome to It's Not What You Think. Today, I have with me one of my beloved clients, Allie Cates, and we are diving in today on a case study journey of her story and the beautiful work that she's been doing, as well as the beautiful transformations and shifts that she's been creating in her life in the almost 2 years that we've been working together. And so Allie's story is absolutely incredible. The work she does is deep and profound, and the shifts that she's made in her life are very impressive. And so before we dive into the story and really start talking about what it is that Allie has been creating over the past 2 years and what her service to the world is, Allie, hello, welcome to the podcast. And would you like to formally introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat just about all the things we've done together. My name is Allie Cates. I am a trauma recovery coach, and I work on the nervous system regulation. I'm also studying under Peter Levine's work right now to become a somatic experience practitioner. And my story really begins in an IV room. I get diagnosed with many things, and I start my coaching business inside of an IV room because I really understand just the profound impact that what happens when trauma is stored in the body, how it manifests physically in ailments, and so how important it is to work on the nervous system regulation and to move that emotional charge through your nervous system so that you can have freedom and peace in your body and life.
And I am all about that. We are all about that. So
Yes.
I love your work because, as you know, having us also doing this work together, I'm very, very passionate about what you do and how you do it, and also your story around how you came to do this work in the first place. So my first question for you, if you could share with us, Allie, what did your life and your business look like before you came to me, and when you came to me and you were ready to start this work together? What was going on that led you to that
Mm.
point, that breaking point? Because it's a really potent story.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. So I'm like, we've had so many iterations of our work. So I'm like, okay, what happened? What was like the beginning point? For me, I started my business in this IV room. So I was like scrappy and like could get stuff done. So I was kind of like bootstrapping my business together. And I was taking what other people were saying on how to run your business or how to make six figures, etc. Like I was taking other people's formula and applying it to my business. And it's ironic because like I didn't think that was how you did healing or life. So I was like using this thing in my business and I didn't even agree with it in life, right?
Mhm.
So I came to you and I was really burnt out. I was like frustrated because I wasn't making the numbers in my business that I wanted to make. And I also just felt like stuck in sharing my story and how to feel empowered sharing my story without it like taking over and really like derailing me. And I felt like every single thing that I was working on, like let's say I got progress in somewhere in my business, and then someone would say something and it would totally derail me because I wasn't embodied and empowered in my decision in my business. So I came to you and I remember, it's funny, I listened to you for like probably 9 months. Like I was a follower, long time listener, first time caller. And I was like, I'm just going to fill out this application with Celine and like, we'll jump on a call and I'm like, not going to really commit. Like I wasn't, that was the other piece of it is I wasn't 100% committed to my business. Like I still had one foot out the door. I was like, yes, this is important work. And I know that this is what I'm meant to be doing, but I wasn't actually putting myself out there and really living what I was talking about either. Like there was this piece of me that was not fully committed. And then I remember us jumping on the call and you just nailed things so quickly. I was like, oh, damn, there's no way I can't work with her. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
like,
I remember
yeah,
that. I remember that.
yeah.
So there's a few things that I want to highlight that you've shared so far that are really important. Because I see this with a lot of people that come to work with me, and it's funny. It's a recurring narrative, and I think it is a recurring narrative, not just for the people that come to work with me, but also for a lot of entrepreneurs who are extremely intuitive, empathic, but haven't fully come to the space where they own that yet, which is this
Mhm.
narrative of, I came to you because, or, I came to you or the coaches before you because I just wanted to be told what to do and I wanted to be given a certain strategy, but actually I knew that that wasn't really the thing that needed to
Yeah.
happen. And it's funny because there's another case study that I recently did with Stephanie, Dr. Wagner, and she mentioned something very similar, which is she hired me because she wanted, quote unquote, I want to have a bunch of business strategies and you tell me what to do. But I knew that that wasn't actually what I needed. And I think it's really important to speak into this, especially when for those of us who are doing work in the healing spaces, in the
Mhm.
coaching spaces, and the more in the spaces that require not just logical thinking and structure, but also a lot of intuition, especially when we're working with the body and somatics. It's when it comes to growing our business, it's not just about a marketing strategy or funnel strategy, but it's really about that ability to trust yourself, to own who you are, and to be able to listen to your intuition and what it is that is coming alive for you intuitively as well. So I think that's really important that you're mentioning that, because it is definitely a thing that I've noticed come up a few times.
Yeah.
So
Can
all
I
right,
touch
so
on that really quick?
yes, touch on it.
Can I add something else?
Hmm.
Is that I've noticed, like, a year ago or 2 years ago, if I followed that strategy of what other people were saying, they were like, they probably would have said, hire the team at this point.
Hmm.
But if you're not energetically ready to hold space for a team member because you don't know how to like do the inner work or things need to be adjusted in your own
Hmm.
nervous system, like then it's not going to feel aligned. And then that's how you lead to even more burnout, right? So I
Hmm.
always have these aha moments where I'm like, oh, that's why I worked on this piece of my business for so long, because now I feel confident to make these decisions without like struggling my way through it. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, of course it makes sense. And
Yeah.
that's something I definitely want you to touch on because what you're saying is really important for people who are, think I want a strategy to hire a team. I want a strategy to double my income. I want a strategy to, launch my podcast. And again, strategy is beautiful. And we'll touch on in this episode, we can touch on the ways that you've applied strategy because I know we've done a lot of strategy together,
Mhm.
but I'd love for you to share as we go along that those touch points where you realize that having those proper foundations and having your nervous system on board with
Mhm.
what it is that you wanted to create was the absolute foundation for you taking the action in the first place. So we'll touch on that. And but before we do, I just want to rewind for a moment. And one of the things you mentioned is that you got on this call and you're like, oh, I can't not do this now. If you could
Mhm.
shed light on what was that moment, because it's not what I believe in, and I know you're
Mhm.
a coach as well, so I know you've experienced this both ends, is that when we decide like we've got to do this, it's not actually about purchasing the coaching package or working, like, oh, Celine's going to come here and she's going to be my hero and fix my issues. Like that's not healthy mentorship, and we both know that. And but it's really about, it's a commitment that you're making, not just to the program, but you're really making it to your business and to the person that you're becoming. And so
Mhm.
I'd be really curious to know why you decided to work with me. And like, what was that moment where you're like, okay, we are going to work, I'm going to work with Celine specifically. And what is it that you expected to
Mm,
receive from this experience?
yeah. I remember on that call, we had gotten to like the investment piece of it, and you were like, okay, so how do you want to get started? Like, this is how much it is. And I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't made this much in my business yet. How can I invest this much in something? And there was this moment where you coached me on it, and you were like, well, do you believe that you will actually make this much money and more? And I was like, yes, I know that. I know that deep in my bones that like this is what I'm meant to do. And you were like, okay, well, then what's the thing that's holding you back? And it was this piece of like playing small. And I remember
Mm,
we, signed the contract. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I made this big investment in myself, right? It was really about making this investment in myself and really believing in myself that I could do this and that I was put here to do this. And I remember I made that money back in 2 months. Like I 10 times my rate, like so quickly. We were in an integration month. I think we had like maybe one or two sessions together, and then we went into an integration month. And yeah, I, you know, made the money back. I made more than that back. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can do this." Like it was this really big like cash injection where you were like, "See, now you know you can make the money. Now let's work on the energetics around like scarcity mindset and all these other things." So that was the moment that I knew was when you coached me around the investment about investing in myself because I had just been investing in strategies. I hadn't been investing in like my own self about being a leader in my own business. Like I've done so much work on my own mental health, etc. But around like actually being a business leader, I hadn't invested in that point.
mhm.
Um, and then what was your other question? I kind of just went on a little vortex right
No,
there.
it's
So
so beautiful. What did you expect to receive? You know, it's always curious to know what did you expect to
Mhm.
receive from the experience as opposed to like what actually started to come alive for you.
Yeah, I think I expected to receive like strategy and maybe a little bit of mindset coaching around like yeah, I don't even know. I think it was more around strategy. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in. We're gonna work together for 4 months. We're gonna hit this strategy. Oh my gosh, you've made 5 figures in 2.5 months. Like this is great. Like I'm gonna be done in 4 months. This is just like it's gonna be a quick little boot camp." I think that's what I expected it to be. And then once we started really diving into the work, there were so many parts of me that still needed a lot of attention and a lot of deconstructing and nervous system work. And like, I feel like we've been in this journey for like not a long time and a long time because we've hit so many things that I feel like my business was built off of that just weren't healthy. Like these people pleasing tendencies or because you built your business from an IV room, it means you need to help everyone. Like and really getting clear on who these people are and why you want to serve them and how you want to serve them. Um, and that's just like touching the surface. I feel like we've done so much work around mindset, around we have done a lot of strategy work around reaching out or marketing or, you know, um, pricing and packaging and and new offerings. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's so much I like have to pull from the all of the teachings and the lessons.
Mhm, mhm. And we will. We'll
Yeah.
pull some of those out and I'll ask
Okay.
you the questions and we'll pull out whatever is needed in today's container for whoever's listening. One of the things I wanna touch on that you have highlighted that is, um, a big mistake that I see entrepreneurs make, especially in that when they're looking to grow their business and they're starting, stopping, starting, stopping, starting, stopping, is what you're describing, which is okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to make this much money, and then we're done. Like, dip, dip, strategy, strategy, and then we're good and I'm good for life. And this
Mhm.
is an attitude that unfortunately is very conditioned, like society conditioned in our fast food, fast instant gratification culture that we have created for ourselves that unfortunately we're really transferring as well into the way that we're doing business. which is that, okay, I just want to figure out what's that strategy or what's the offering, the funnel that I need to create so that I can make as much money as quickly as possible. But when we neglect our nervous system, when we neglect the bigger picture of what we're creating long term, when we neglect our body, which a lot of the work that we've done together also has to do with honoring your body, honoring the
Mhm.
fact that you're a projector in human design and you're not a generator, honoring, what it is that you need in your life and how you want to live your life. And what we realize when we really start peeling back the layers and seeing like all of these things, there's so many different aspects to who we are and the kind of life we want to live and how we want to live it and how we want to serve as entrepreneurs and business owners, that to strip it down into this like cookie cutter formula that maybe, a white man who's a generator and like has endless amounts of energy and has a certain amounts of like has been extremely healthy his entire life, or has his own set of story, then takes this thing that can work for many many people, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, it doesn't mean it's going to work
Mhm.
for me, doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. And so what I noticed is that there's a lot of marketing and a lot of narratives out there of, oh, just take this thing and then for like what you just literally said, in 4 months like you'll get
Mhm.
this thing. But that's not what this work is really about. And that's what one of the reasons when we started working together, and I know with a lot of my clients, yes, it is a significant investment to work with me. I recognize and honor that. And for my clients who are really in that space of, oh my gosh, this makes me very nervous. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's generate that liquidity. Let's generate that money. And for you, it looked like making your investment back in 2 months because I wanted you to see that you have every capacity and more to earn the money that you're desiring to earn. I wanted you to
Mhm.
have an embodied experience of that. And once you were able to have that embodied experience, what I felt from you was just this like, okay, now I can relax into this, roll up my sleeves, and really do the work to create something that is going to last me not 4 months, but it's going to last
Mhm.
me for years and years to come. And that's the
Yeah.
journey that you've been on.
Yeah.
And so,
And
yeah,
the
go ahead.
wobbliness piece, right? Like I
Mm,
felt like I was like that was one of the biggest shifts is things that would spiral me out for like 2 months. Now maybe spiral me out for like an hour or 2 hours or a day at the most because I
mhm,
have the tools and I have the background and I have like the really firm foundation that I know how this is going to go, or I can go back to my practices that help ground me and regulate me in a way where it's not going to spiral me out for so long, right? Like when I came to
mhm,
you, I was in this program where it was like, you're going to make recurring profit of $10,000 a month by selling your, online self-paced course. And it's like for the type of work that I do, it can be helpful for people to have those courses. But there was so much work around like, I remember you asked me, like, what if you want to make more than $10,000 a month? What if you want to make $50,000 a month? Like, what about then? And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't really know. Like, I just kind of took someone's strategy and applied it. And so I think it's so important to actually figure out what you want to have in your own business instead of just, looking at what other people have and then being like, okay, I'm going to quickly apply this like fast food, like what you're saying. Like,
mhm.
it's not, you have to do the inner work to be able to hold that space.
So what you're saying is super important, and I'd love for you to share more about. Can you, for somebody who's listening, and it's like thinking, what do you mean the inner work? Can you share what you
Mm,
mean by we need to do the inner work to hold that space? Because that's such a big component of what we've done, and I think is
mhm.
I'm biased, but I do think this is what every single person, every entrepreneur who's holding a business like really needs to be doing. And could you also share what you said around? Oh, it used to take me months, now it's taking me a week. If there's somebody who's like, what is she talking about? Would you be able to clarify what is that
Mhm.
thing? What are those things that used to take you months that now you're able to get through in way less time than that? And how were we able to do that?
Yeah. I think one example is like getting on like a alignment call with someone. And if they didn't buy right away or they needed more time, that would spiral me out. And then I would go into these limiting beliefs around like, I'm not running my business, or maybe the prices are wrong, or like all of the negative things that would pop up. And we did a lot of, subconscious reprogramming around like, okay, what if this isn't about you? What if this is just around this isn't the right person at the right time? And can you hold that space and can you believe in yourself enough that someone else is going to come in, right? Because there were so many times that I would doubt myself that like, oh, if I don't get this person on this sales call, then no one's going to come in. Because I still had that belief that my work wasn't, that people didn't need the work that I was doing. That was what the belief was.
Mhm.
So there was this belief around like, oh, people don't need trauma recovery and nervous system work. And you were like, hey, let's deconstruct that and actually look at like, where is that coming from? Why do you believe that? Oh, you believe that because your parents don't believe that, right? Like your parents don't believe that you need that, this is important. So now you have this belief and you're holding on to it and it's dictating your life and it's spiraling you out when anyone triggers that piece of you, right?
Mhm.
And so there
Mhm.
was so much kind of like excavating of, there was childhood stuff that definitely came up that I have been working on for years, but then like it was so impactful in our container to work through it around sexual trauma in my childhood. Like that was a huge piece of what was kind of driving this people pleaser in me, is like that was the conditioning that kept on coming up. Is like, oh, you have to people please and you have to please these other people because that's like so locked into your nervous system that it's showing up in your business. And
Mhm.
like, so those things would spiral me out for months, like literally months. And I would be like, oh, now I need to find a new strategy. And oh my gosh, I'm feeling left behind. And like, oh, how is everyone else making like such good success in their business, but I'm not? Like, and these things would just spiral me out. And now, if that limiting belief comes in, I have the tools that you and I've worked on to be like, okay, no, pause, like go back to your toolkit, put everything down, and like look at what's coming up and process
Mhm.
what's coming up instead of just kind of shoving it aside or, barely tapping into it. Right.
Mhm.
And the piece around the inner work is that, I mean, that's what we do, like as coaches specifically. And I, there were times where I was like, oh my goodness, maybe I should have hired Celine when I was like 5 years into my business or whatnot. But like this piece was so potent for me to be able to grow my business around doing the inner work, around looking at the shadows that were like showing up in my business, around the subconscious limiting beliefs that were showing up, around like the stuff that I had stored in my nervous system, or like that stuff doesn't just stay in your personal life, it oozes into your business life. And those limiting beliefs are going to be running the show in your business.
Mhm.
So that's why I think like doing this work and this inner work is so important. Whether you're just starting out in your business and you really feel like that is a big block for you, or you've been 10 or 15 years into a successful business, like it doesn't matter. It's important when like at any stage of your business.
Mhm. Mhm. And everything you said, it's really beautifully summarizing why I do this work and how I have found personally my pathway to doing my business by soul it is. And even in my group program, which you're also part of, Business by Soul, we really talk about this. That's like the first, in the entire first section is about alignment. It's about identifying what are the belief systems that we're
Mm,
unconsciously engaging in that are keeping us small. Because you illustrated this perfectly, Ali. At the end of the day, it wasn't about your inability to take a clarity, alignment call. It wasn't that you can't get on a call and sell a program. It was the belief system that you were holding around your work not mattering. That was the issue, because even no matter how I could coach you until the cows come home on how to handle objections and how to price your programs and how to conduct the call, and what structure to use a call, and we could even make a script for you to do the call. But if you are following that strategy still believing that, oh, I'm going to go through this call but they're not really going to buy because what I'm charging is not really worth it to them, and the work that I do isn't that important even though it's important to me, then that energy is going to be seeping through whatever it is, that whatever actions that you're taking. And so that importance of really looking at that belief system of, in your case, my work isn't important enough, and realizing that that belief system was never actually yours. It was a belief system that you unconsciously adapted
mhm.
from your parents, which is, as
Yeah.
children, most of our belief systems, they come from our caretakers. Like between the age of 0 and 7 is where we form most of our belief systems, our value systems, and our perception of reality is really formed at that tender state age. And part of us, being adults and taking responsibility for our reality and changing our reality is really reviewing and taking a look at all those belief systems that we unconsciously subscribe to, and then consciously unsubscribe to them and create new ones,
Mm,
which, as you know, doing the work that you do doesn't just happen from mindset. It also happens through the body, and it does
mhm.
require to get your nervous system on board, which is why so much of that unpacking and deconditioning and the subconscious reprogram that we've done had to happen through the body, had to happen through your nervous system, had to happen through your energy body as well,
Mhm.
before we could basically onboard you into an aligned strategy. So
Yeah,
with all that being said, it'd be really amazing, what you shared with us in terms of what you were able to create in the first 2 months that we've been working together. And as I shared before, we've been working together for almost 2 years now, which has been really, really fun and exciting.
so fun.
And it'd be, if you were to reflect on this entire period that we've been together, what would you say have been the key transformations that you've
Mm,
experienced?
how long do we have? Um,
Succinctly, madame.
yeah, like trying to think. The biggest one I would say, like if I take our time and kind of chunk them into sections, the the first part was around getting out of this victim mindset, like really believing in myself and what I have to put on this earth and who I'm here to serve. Like that was a really big piece of it, and not having these things that happen to me be this block for me showing up the way that I knew and know that I'm meant to show up as. Like that was a really big breakthrough. Like even my husband will like check me on that. He'll be like, is this coming up? Like, remember Celine said this? Like, cause I will like talk to him about stuff. He'll be like, are you getting victimy? And I'm like, you're right, damn it. Like, but
I
it's
love
like
that Ryan's on
helpful.
board. That
I
makes me
know
really
he's so
happy.
on board.
Oh,
He's
when
so
my
on
clients'
board.
husbands get on board, I'm like, yes,
Yes.
converted.
Um, so that was what I would say, like the first chunk. The second chunk really was like we had a VIP day in San Francisco, and that just blew my mind just around energetically like working with you and how you hold space as a coach and a practitioner, and just like really feeling into this excitement in my body around creating this space and really aligning with these clients that I know that I'm here to serve. Like we got really clear on who this clientele was and why I wanted to serve them. And then that was kind of like the second half of our work, I would say. It's like really being like, can you hold this space? Are you ready to serve these clients? Okay, you're getting wobbly in this. Why are you getting wobbly in this? Right. And then I would say kind of like the last chunk of it has been just aligning more and more into like, okay, so you are getting these aligned clients. Wow, how exciting. Oh my gosh, look at how quickly that happened. Like, do you believe that things can happen this quickly and like that you're worthy of this? And can you hold that space even deeper? And what do you need to do in your body and your own nervous system to be able to hold that space for these, like high impact clientele? Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't even know. There's just so many good things to say, but this work has literally transformed my life and like my business, and like I just get emotional thinking about it because I don't know where I would be without you, and not because we're like codependent on each other, but because you've really helped me. You've challenged me to like grow into myself even more. So I feel like every other coaching program I did or worked with a coach, I always was like getting scared about like not working with them because I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do when I'm not working with them? But you like empowered me so much to find myself instead of being like, this is my strategy and this is how you apply it to your business so that there isn't this codependency. Like it has been so healing on so many different levels that I can't say enough good things.
Thank you, babe.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, and I love working with you, and I've really loved seeing you just blossom into the woman that you are, and you're just starting, so it's more is coming, more case studies in the future there will be, but it's really beautiful because, yeah, you are a really powerful woman, and you're a powerful being, and you're here to create a lot of things. Everything you're saying is spot on, so it's an honor and a privilege for me to hear you say that about yourself and really start to recognize in you what I've seen from you from the day that we got on that call. So,
Thank you.
and one of the things, one of the things I was going to ask you, which it actually feels God answered in and of itself, what it really meant for you to create these shifts in your life. So instead, I'm going to ask, as a result of this work, what do you feel that you're walking away with? Like, if somebody
Mhm,
is listening to this and they're like, okay, I want to do the inner work, I want to do this for myself. What is it that are the both the tangibles and non-tangibles that you're really walking away with?
mhm. The tangible would be a strategy that feels aligned for myself. Like, I feel so comfortable being able to actually sit down and be like, "Okay, I need to tweak this thing in my business." Maybe and we can take things that people I think understand, like maybe my marketing strategy doesn't feel aligned. So I know how to sit down and take 2 hours and, like, go through what I need to do and the tweaks I need to make and how to, like, make these things align with my own nervous system instead of just looking at do 30 days of reels to grow your Instagram or, you know, do X, Y, and Z. Like I can sit there and kind of tweak what I need to do in my business or even with pricing. Like you're like, okay, I'm like, let's work on pricing. You're like, great. Like, this is how I need you to work on it. Like, get in your body. And we went over like what to do. And then I sat there for literally, Celine, I think it felt like 6 hours, but it was an hour and a half because I was just so in it. I was so laser focused on it and created like 4 different offerings. One of them is new, and it just felt so aligned and so good. I was like high off of this feeling of like, "Oh my goodness, I've created this. This has come from me. Like I am creating these things in my business." So I would say that is like the tangibles that I know how to go in and like tweak these things that maybe aren't working out strategy wise, right? And then
Hmm.
I would say maybe I mean, I think everything's tangible, but for people that are listening that are like, "I don't know what you're talking about so much." Um, I mean, this like sense of calm and peace, which also is tangible, but like this sense of calm and peace in my body around my business. I used to wake up with so much anxiety that I didn't even know was like anxiety around making it or around proving that I could do this or proving my worth to myself. And I just don't have that feeling. Like I wake up and I feel like excited or I feel just like calm. I'm like, "Oh, okay. You know what's happening in your business. You know the things that you need to work on." And so there's just this level of like clarity and like true peace that I'm like, "Okay, this is happening." And it's like when
Hmm.
I actually slow down and get into my body, things speed up so much quicker than me trying to force my
Hmm.
way through and like have these strategies. Like when I actually slow down and work on, my energy management for the day, like that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, look, 4 people filled out an application to work one on one. Or like, oh my goodness, I reached out to that aligned client and they're like game to work together. Like
Hmm.
those big shifts, I knew that they were possible, like in the world and in the universe. I knew that it was going to happen, but I thought that it was going to happen maybe like 10 or 15 years from now. And so
Hmm.
actually being able to be like, "Oh, wow," when you slow down and you get aligned, like these things come a lot quicker than when you're
Hmm.
forcing and pushing strategy and like muscling your way through, which that has a place for business for sure. But
Hmm. Hmm. What you're speaking into is really profound, and it's one of the founding principles of Business by Soul, which is not just a group program for me, it's just a philosophy. It is a way
yeah.
of doing business by soul instead of business by ego. And the words you used are perfect because when it comes to business by soul, the key principles of this is through your body,
Mhm.
listening to soul, and slowing down to speed up. And one of the things I share with you a lot and with my clients, and also I've definitely talked about on this podcast, which is that it's not about speed. When we talk about quantum leaps, we talk about going accelerating your progress. There's a couple ways to go about it. One is the what you're saying, like rolling up your sleeves, muscling your way, pushing your way through it. That's the very masculine,
Mm-hmm.
yang, like let's just get this done, pushing mass against mass. And it can be effective, but the cost of it is that it's exhausting. It is really exhausting, especially if you're in a woman's body. And especially if you're an empath, if you're sensitive, it's only short term sustainable, but it's not long term sustainable, and it does not feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the body based approach, which can seem from the outside looking in, especially from the mind, it can seem quite intolerable because for those of us, a lot of us who are addicted to that fast paced culture of instant gratification, which our brain is trained to basically get instant dopamine because of social media, our culture of ordering things and getting them to our door now within 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
has trained us subconsciously to want things really fast. And so it's extremely counterintuitive to say, I'm going to slow down and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get into my body and I'm going to work with my nervous system to be more in my parasympathetic than I am in my sympathetic, and applying the tools that I've taught you, the practices in the morning, your slow mornings, the energy management tools that that I've shared with you, and to be like, oh, I'm going to slow down because the mind's like, wait, but then I'm not going to get the income I want in 10 years or whatever the story is. It's like, I'm not going to get the clients. If I slow down, then it's going to take forever. And I need to pay these bills and I won't be able to, like, whatever the freaking narrative is. There's
Mm-hmm.
1,001 narratives around there, especially if that scarcity belief system's there. But actually, what you were describing and what you've experienced, which I'm so glad, is to get to the place where you feel calm, where you feel joy, where you feel like your business is uniquely yours. It's a unique expression of your soul. You had to get into your body and you had to slow down. And as you slow down and you got aligned, things sped up because actually things move as quickly as you're aligned. It's not
Mm-hmm.
as quickly as you do. It's as quickly as you align. And so as the more efficient what you're saying, what used to take you a few months now takes you a few weeks or days or sometimes
It
even
takes me a couple
hours.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If it takes you a couple hours, that means that you're taking what would have normally taken you 2 months of being off railed and disaligned, which is going to result in decisions that aren't truly yours. It's going to result in a lot of distractions, a lot of time wasting and strategies and just stuff that you don't actually need to do, all this extra doing, all this extra fatiguing of self. But rather, you are just erasing all of that and you're collapsing timelines by taking a few hours to manage your energy, to apply the
Mm-hmm.
tools, to come back into your body, to slow down. And through that slowing down, through that embodiment, through taking care of your nervous system and coming into alignment, then basically the highway's clear. And so whatever action that you take is going to have a clear highway instead of having to take a bunch of turns or like whack through a bunch of bushes. It's a clear highway. So you make a decision and you're inspired and you say, I'm going to email this client. I feel really inspired to extend this offer. Then all of a sudden the
That's what
person
it
says, absolutely,
Oh my
yes.
gosh. Yeah, it
Yeah.
happened last week. This person popped into my head and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're a dream client." And I like went and checked on their Instagram and they had like
Mhm.
posted something about slowing down and I sent them an email and then they were on like vacation or something. And I was like, "I'm just going to keep like I just had this knowing. I was like, this person and I are going to we're aligned. Like this is a match." And it wasn't coming from an ego place. It was genuinely like in my soul, I feel this. And I was like watching TV at the time and I'm like, just send them a sweet little email. Like it doesn't have to be this big thing. You don't have to craft an email for 4 days and sit on it and stress about it. Like just shoot the person an email. And if they say no, okay, you know? And I left it unread, their like autoresponder, and then they emailed back the next morning. So I emailed them at like maybe 7 o'clock at night, and by the next morning they'd emailed back. We're like, oh my gosh, I was just like learning about what like somatics, and I would love to chat. I'm like, great, like it can be that easy once you really get aligned. Because I was forcing my way through like not having aligned clients, and I
Mhm.
was remember there was this whole chunk of time where I was taking not aligned clients and people pleasing my way through packages, and that just doesn't feel good. And it doesn't, if you're here to serve the people that you're here to serve, and if you can be clear on that, then it's going to speed up the timeline. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
really clear about who you're going to serve, then the rest of it you can feel comfortable about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of that and a lot of the quote unquote work is actually in getting to that clarity.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your words, Ali, because I talk about this so much in my podcast and social media and basically everything because it's such an important part of what I do. But I know that it's sometimes very helpful to get a different person's summary of it. How
Mhm.
would you then define alignment and the importance of that in Business by Soul?
Yeah. How do you put that into words? It's hard because it's like such a body thing. I'm like trying to figure out how to put it into words. But for me, how I can describe it is like there's, I don't have anxiety around it. And I just feel like really happy and content in my body. Like, so when I make decisions from an aligned place, it feels like water. Like for me, it feels like swimming through water, like kind of lukewarm water. I grew up as a swimmer, so like that's kind of what I use as a reference point. And it doesn't feel like I'm forcing anything.
Mm,
Like there isn't this force or push or anxiety around it. Like maybe, yeah, there isn't this pushing around it. It just feels like I get a ping and I'm like, okay, this is what you're gonna do.
mm,
And our work has been being like, okay, Allie, take that ping and like what happens if you actually follow it through,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
right? Because so often I think people do get these alignment pings and they're like, oh, well, my friend said I can't do this, or oh, well, my mom said I can't do this, or oh, well, my boyfriend said this, or my husband said this, or my best friend. And like we have these other people's storylines. And that was also a big chunk of our work is like, is this really your belief, or is this a belief that you've heard that you've attached your identity to?
mhm,
And when you're
mhm,
in alignment, everyone else's beliefs kind of fall away, and you just feel like, okay, I'm really clear on this.
mhm, mhm. Beautiful. I love the way you explained it. It's so different than how I explain it. So that's good. It's a really new perspective, but exactly like spot on. And this is a fun little question that just popped up. Speaking of pings, which is that in our work together, what would you say most surprised you or most had you like, "What? What?"
Oh, yeah.
You know? You're like, "Uh-oh."
So many things. Um, so many things I like. For me, you are such a gift to this earth, and like you're so connected. And I think what surprised me is like the spiritual side of all of this work and around being connected to
Mm,
universe, God, nature, whoever you want to call it. But for me, um, like, in our, and I keep on going back to this, but like our VIP day, we've had two, but like our first one was like such a big mover and shaker for me. Um, and you being able to like, I remember my grandma kept on showing up to the session
mhm,
when I really needed to hear her, and you were able to like channel that and be like, this is what she's saying to you right now.
mhm,
And so I think that surprised me because it's like I'm so close to my grandma who's not earthside anymore. But for you to be able to like see that piece of it, I don't think I had told you about my grandma either,
mm.
but you're like, there's
No.
this lady and she's this, and I'm like, oh, it's definitely grandma, right? And so I feel like as like the more work that you did as a coach, just the more that our container was able to open and actually you were able to like break these boundaries that maybe I thought were like woo woo or like that I knew, but other people think are not legitimate. But for me, it's like being able to actually tap into that spiritual side and see these parts of yourself and like see the universe and your spirits and your guides and all of that. Like I've always known that, but you definitely brought me back to that. And so that was like such a
Mhm,
gift because that's also just helped me in places when like I am feeling wobbly of like being able to tap back into like a higher self and tapping into people that are surrounding you.
Mhm.
I don't know if I put
Yeah.
that into like
No,
eloquent
it's
words.
it's perfect, and, it's interesting you bring that up because, talking about our growth edge and the way that we grow, it's not just you as a client growing, and I know you appreciate this as a coach being yourself, but we also grow as mentors and as coaches the more we put
Mhm.
ourselves out there, and especially if my work is to support you in your fullest soul expression, that means that I need to show up in my fullest soul expression too in order for me to really be able to, match that frequency as you grow and I grow. And, I remember that day, that first day when that happened, and I remember just being like, "Allie, this is so weird, but I there's a spirit here, there's, like she keeps talking to me," and I remember it was just so violent, not violently the word, it's just she was just
No, she was
so
like persistent.
so, like, not allowing me to coach you, but without speaking into what she was saying, that I remember just I kept trying to ignore it and just
Mhm.
coach you into whatever the situation was, and my train of thought just kept getting interrupted, and so there was a couple of times where I was like, and it was just getting embarrassing. So in that moment was the moment where I had to kind of put my, it was one of those moments where I had to coach myself in front of you in real time the way I would have coached you, because if that was you, I would have said, "Well, be in your truth, Allie." And in that moment, I had to also be vulnerable and
Mhm.
say, "Hey, this thing is happening. It's here. It's in the room, and I don't know. Are you open to it?" And that vulnerability of maybe you not being open to it, and that
Yeah.
in itself allowed me to expand into that. So it really, the reason why I share this story is because when we're doing work, especially for in service provider work, there will be times that we're being challenged, and in that moment for me, it was quote unquote a little embarrassing. That was my limiting belief system for
Mhm.
me to be, channeling your dead grandmother that I didn't even realize was not with us anymore. But for me to just tell you that it was happening real time, expose myself in that way, and ask for permission in itself was a really big growth edge for me. And that's what happens when we are committed to this work. It's not just me sitting there, holding space for you, but there is an alchemy that happens that is actually symbiotic. And then I
Mhm.
get to grow as a coach. And the more I grow as a coach, as a mentor, the more I can pass things on to you. And it just keeps going. And so I think what you're sharing is also important, from whoever's listening, that maybe you're in a service-based container, you're in a service-based career, and have that bit kind of business, is that, yeah, sometimes you'll need to expose to your clients and hit your edge. And in my case, that edge was showing more of that spiritual side, which then ended up
Mhm.
being a huge gift for you. So
Yeah.
it went both ways. And another piece that I feel called to share, because you mentioned it earlier in the interview as well, where you were sharing that we had like two sessions, and then between those two sessions, when you went off and you made back the investment, there was an integration
Mm.
month. And I know this is something that we've been working as well for you as to what it looks like. This is such an issue for the
Mhm.
entrepreneur and also the coach of, I can't take time off, or I can't, just, unplug from my clients, because otherwise my clients won't be able to get the results that they need. And so I'd love if you could speak into what you found has in our containers, with any of my private clients. I include integration months into our containers
Mhm.
because I believe that it is just as important to integrate the deep work that we do as it is to actually be out there doing the work. But there's really this importance of having spaciousness in between for you to be able to digest and really implement what we've done. So would you be able to speak into your experience, what your experience has been around having those integration months as a client? As a
Mhm.
coach, what I can say is that for me, it's an opportunity for me to grow, to do those trainings that I've been wanting to do, to travel, to take time off, to rest, and to also just improve my skill set as a coach. And I know every time I come back from my integration months, I feel like I'm way, way better, not just as a person, but also as a mentor. But it'd be really
Yeah.
interesting to hear the client, side of that, as I know a lot of people have asked me about these months, and a lot of
Mm.
people really want to also take their integration space.
Yeah. I think at first I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna have a full month off, like, what the heck?" Like, there was a lot of limiting beliefs around it, but it was fascinating because, like, we were in a container and you were holding so much space. Like, just because we're not meeting online doesn't mean that you're not holding space and you're, you know, working on yourself, which also then transmutes to your clients, right? Like it's a direct correlation. So at first I was like, okay, what's this? But I saw how much growth I had in that first month that I was like, oh my goodness, wow, this is incredible. And I mean, I love them. I love them because I feel like they come at the right time where we're doing a lot of work. And then it's like, okay, I'm getting like this fire in me to go and put it out into the universe. And then it always is like, okay, it's integration month. I'm like, yay, like, here we go. And then we come back and it's like, look at all these things that I did. You're like, yeah, duh, like, of course you did. So I love them. I think that they're really great. And they've also helped me to expand that into my own business because I do think that it's really powerful to take those times off so that people can just like take a beat. And I always find that like when you are being coached, it's like when you're driving or when you're not in the coaching session is when things are landing or when they're hitting, right? Sometimes they hit in the coaching session, but also sometimes like you're having a dream about it or you're driving around or like for me, like when I'm riding my horse, I'm like, aha, like that's the thing that we've been working on. So I love them. I think that they're really incredible, and I think that they're a great gift to like your clients and also yourself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think to yourself is such an important piece for all of us because
Hmm.
self care is one of the most neglected parts of entrepreneurship. And it's one of the parts that we need the most. And
Hmm.
so that self care piece allows me to take care of myself, you to take care of yourself. And then, as you shared, it really gives you that spaciousness to go and implement and see the results of everything you've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, I think that just the way that we're conditioned in the Western world is so much about work and grind and like continue to push even when you don't feel good and you don't feel, you know, and you feel tired, right? And
Mm,
this integration month really just shows me like, okay, you can slow down. And that's when things actually speed up, is when you slow down and you get aligned and you're able to then like speed up.
yeah, exactly. Beautiful. So, Ali, in summary, now that we've shared all of these different pieces of our work together, if we were to just wrap it up in a nice little bow, what would you say has changed from before and after? I mean, I know we're still working together, but from then when you started to now of taking this program, what would you say is like the biggest change?
Oh, there's so many. Hold on, give me a second. I think that the biggest change is that I feel really confident in where I'm going and where I've been in the journey. Like, I feel confident in my journey. And also having those aligned clients and like being able to call them in has been transformational for me because I always thought that, oh, that's what other people do is they work with this clientele and I can't do that. And so actually being able to be aligned and confident that it's like, oh no, you're serving these aligned clients and this is what you're here to do has just like changed the game.
Hmm. Beautiful. And with that confidence, you can do anything.
Anything. You can be on podcasts, you can speak, you can do whatever you want. You can take your integration months. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
You can do
Yoo-hoo!
all
Love
you can do
it.
anything.
And, for people who are listening and have, are thinking about doing this work with myself, either in a private container or one of the other containers that I offer, who do you recommend doing this work, this program for, and why?
Hmm. I think anyone, and I'm gonna swear here, but I think anyone who's really ready to get the fuck out of their own way.
Hmm.
And you have to be like anyone that knows that they are here to do something more than what they're doing and they have those limiting beliefs, but they really know that like they're here to create big change, but they continue to get stuck in the weeds or what other people are saying. Like if you're ready to get the fuck out of your own way and have like really big changes in your life, then this is for you. And if you're not, then blessings.
Allie, spicy. I love it. I love it. That Allie spice.
Yeah.
Um, and something else that I think is really important because this private work, as you're very well aware of, I have very limited spots. I don't do this with everybody. I take on just a select amount of clients every year. So um, this is not going to be for everyone, the private work.
Mhm.
However, as you're also aware of, as you've taken quite a few of my courses and you've gone through the journey, you're going through Business by Soul right now. So you have had experience taking my group programs as well as several of my self-paced courses, masterclass, and things that I've
Mhm.
created. And so for someone who maybe private coaching isn't accessible to them yet or isn't exactly what they're looking for, would you be able to speak to, as somebody who's done the private client work as well
Yeah.
as the self-led work, would you be able to speak to what your experience has been with my courses and group programs, which ones really stuck out to you, as well as for anyone who's listening and thinking, oh, well, if she's a private client, obviously we're doing this work, this transformation, she's working with Celine privately, but I know that you've told me, taking especially my Love Money Again masterclass, you're like, oh my God, I got so many breakthroughs just from this alone that
So
we're not,
many.
yeah, that we didn't have in the private coaching.
Yeah.
So would you be able to just shed light on your experience of
Mhm.
what it could look like to work with me on a self-led path or group program path?
Yeah. All of them are great. I think the biggest one that really shifted for me is like obviously Business by Soul is like hands down. If I was not able to like work with you as a one-on-one client, as a private client, Business by Soul is just so good, you guys, because it is like everything that we've gone over in our one-on-one coaching that is just like perfectly put into a program. Like I'm doing it right now. I'm like, oh, this is so good. I want everyone in business to take this course because it's talking about what you and I've just been talking about this whole time, right? About like leading with your soul and what is your body saying and how to create strategy around like what you actually feel instead of following what other people are telling you to do, right? So hands down Business by Soul and Love Money Again. Like that one is so good. I remember being live for it and I was like, Celine is going off. Like it was like 5 hours long. It was supposed to be like 2.5, but you were just channeling so much stuff that needed to come out. I was like, you guys, this should be worth so much more than what it is. But it's like such a good one. That one, hands down, is
Mhm.
so good for anyone that has scarcity mindset or grew up in a place where, yeah, they have that scarcity mindset, which for me was a lot that we have worked on. Um, it's such a good one. I listen to it like whenever I'm like, oh, I need like a little money, rewiring. I like will go and listen to that one. And then your
Mhm.
meditations are also really incredible.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean anything that you put out is good, but I would say that if you are wanting to kind of dip your toe in the water of this work, I'd say Business by Soul is where you should start.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's so
Absolutely.
good. Yeah, it's so good.
It's a masterpiece. I mean, I'm
It's
not just saying that
literally
because
no,
I'm
it is. Because I even have aha moments when I'm doing it. I'm like, "Oh, Business by Soul." Like, because for me, I love marketing, right? Like, that's just like I love marketing so much. And so there's these pieces where I'm like, "Of course it's called Business by Soul because this is what you're actually doing." Like, it is how you move through your own business and how you coach your private clients in, one-on-one containers.
Mhm. Mhm. No,
Yeah,
I'm really happy because I'm obsessed with that program and,
it's
I'm
so
taking
good.
I know, I'm like,
It's so
I
good.
I mean, it took a year and a half of embodiment and just step by step. It was big, but when it came out, I'm like, "Oh boy, the world better watch out because this thing is
It was it's so good. Yeah, definitely do that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, Allie, thank you so much. This has been a really profound conversation on so many levels. I know that people that are listening are going to be like, "Whoa!" And there's so many things that you've said. But is there anything as we begin to wrap up this conversation? Is there anything that you feel is important to share, or anyone who's on the other end of this podcast episode right now listening? Anything to close things up that they need to know?
Yeah, I would say that, like, if you have this burning desire on your heart to show up in some way, it's not there like, it's there for a reason. And if you are doing a certain strategy and it's not working out, it's not because of you. It's like it's it's the strategy, and to just keep on going, like really just keep going. And I remember hearing that over and over again. But yeah, if you have that deep knowing in your body and your soul when you do feel aligned, like don't give up. Do not give up.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Do not give up. Keep
Do
listening to
not
these
give up.
episodes.
Yes,
Go
keep
on the
listening to
gram.
episodes.
Like,
Go
there
on,
are so
follow
many
Celine.
resources available.
Yeah.
Call
Yeah.
we'll fill out an application, then we call
Yeah.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Allie. And for people who want to learn more about your work and get to meet you, where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram, so that is Ali, Ali, and then Kates, Kates .co. And that's my handle for Instagram, TikTok, my website. So you can follow me there or reach out on my website.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And for those of you who listening who got any big breakthroughs, any insights from this episode, feel free to screenshot this episode and to tag me and Allie and let us know what it is that you loved about it. Ali, thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing your story. You are such a gift to me, and I
Mm,
really, really love working with you so much. And so I'm really excited for what the future holds for us ahead. And I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing from your heart everything that you've been through because regardless of, and this is what what I told you before we pressed the record button. Yes, of course this is a case study, of course we're talking about the work that you and I have done together, but regardless of whether someone just listens to this episode and then never engages with me or you again, I wanted to record this episode as a reminder to people of what is possible. And wherever you are in your life, in your business, however you're feeling about your life and your business, know that there is a better way. There is a way for you to operate life from your soul and by
mm.
your soul. And that actually also gets to translate into your business. And building and creating your business gets to be fun. It gets to be exciting. It gets to be, as what Ali said, peaceful and joyful and nervous system friendly, and something that is really a true, authentic expression of your soul, where you get to serve people who are aligned to what you're here to do on this planet. So thank you, Ali, for being an example and embodiment of that.
Thank you so much. It's been such a gift.
All right. Well, I will see you soon. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, beautiful humans, for tuning in to today's episode of It's Not What You Think. If you loved what you received today, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts as it helps us reach even more amazing listeners like you. If we aren't already connected on social media, come receive even more tips and inspiration by following me on Instagram at Celine DaCosta or visiting my website at celinedacosta.com. After listening to this episode, I invite you to take a few moments to reflect. What stood out to you? What were your key takeaways or breakthroughs? And if there was one action step you could take from this, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to connect in the next episode. Until then, keep sharing your unique gifts and living out your most magical life.